So it's funny, we sort of hinted at it earlier and talk about blockchain, not Bitcoin narrative. And so my story is less of a story, more of a general observation of the resurgence in the Bitcoin, not blockchain narrative. So there was a little tussle in reaction to a tweet on crypto Twitter this past weekend about how the hiring processes for jobs will all occur on the blockchain eventually. The short of the tweet was, and I thought it was hilarious, you apply for a job, Adapt scans the blockchain, rates your on-chain credentials, and if you exceed a certain rating, boom, you're hired. It's done in 60 seconds. A couple of things came to mind for me immediately. If you guys would just entertain me for a second before we start talking, I would welcome you guys to lash on any of these points. First, this feels eerily like a social credit system that we all shiver at, especially Naomi. I'm sure she's shivering. Second, we sort of already have this. I saw a really good Twitter thread of a computer scientist who just brutalized resume scanning algorithms using nonsensical buzzwords and specific orders, and he was getting to final round interviews about just putting literal nonsense in his resume. And third, I think we are starting to see more instances of the enterprise blockchain crowd enter this world that so spectacularly failed with these big companies like IBM. It just looks like this iteration is masquerading as DLT. I don't know if you guys heard people use that in the corporate world, or distributed ledger technology, especially with the wild success of Bitcoin and Ethereum these days. I just want to make the point that we should be wary of bad ideas that are trying to sound like good ideas just because there's a blockchain wrapper on it. I started my rant thinking about real estate on the blockchain. It seems like an idea that's just an idea for an idea's sake. So I sound like a big curmudgeon here because I think blockchains are not the answer to everything and are only incredibly useful in situations where a non-permissioned use case is available. So sorry for the long-winded rants. Sounds like we're ending today's show with philosophical talk, but I would love to hear what any of you guys have to say here. Just lash on to any of those points.
Will, why don't you
start? I remember this the first time around. I remember this the first time around a few years ago, 4 years ago, and everything was blockchain this and blockchain that. And we're the first ones to put this on a blockchain. And oh my gosh, I got tired of those pitches. And as far as the social credit thing is concerned, every time I hear about these, I think about lately, there was an episode on Community. I don't know if anyone ever saw that I guess it was a sitcom of sorts. It was a comedy series, and they had this thing called Meow Meow Beans. And it was like this app where you could rate your friends and rate people around the school, and everything was hierarchied. And every time I see that episode, I think that is where we're headed. And I'm pretty sure it was a pretty good commentary on where we might be headed, in a very funny way on the show, of course, but not so funny in real life, in terms of putting people's social ratings on a blockchain. And I think that what we're really hoping to get is some sort of decentralized ID where at least you have you can give permission to the right people in order to access information about you. I think where it's going to get scary, though, is when you're required to share particular bits of information on a decentralized platform in order to access any kind of service. And I hope that we stay away from that. Naomi?
Yeah, there was also a Black Mirror episode about this as well. It took a much darker turn. It was a little bit scary. But this idea that, blockchain versus Bitcoin, I definitely understand it to a certain extent, because you do see a lot of people talking about this technology without any incentivization for participating in it. And I know a lot of people bash altcoins, but altcoins are necessary to power a lot of these systems to actually make this apparatus for decentralizing whatever trust they're trying to decentralize functional. If you have a system and you're just relying on people's goodwill to run nodes and to verify and to maintain the security of the network, I don't see that as being a good option for longevity of that system, which is why you need the crypto underscoring it. But, and then anyone who's ever tried to hire for their company will look at this automated job idea that he had of it all on the blockchain and just be like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.